All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. So I'm Lasantha from RMIT. So in my presentation, I'm going to talk about the community batteries as well as the community microgrid solutions. So this presentation, I'm not going to technical depth, but I'm going to cover up the general information about these two technologies and the differences between these two technologies. So I have lined up my presentation with these topics. So start with our research capability and then go to the different various projects that we have done before. And after that, I will go through the simple definition of community microgrids and what are the main design considerations. And after that, looking at various examples. And also, some of you may know that we have done a very primitive study on YA to identify the potential sites for the microgrids. And finally, I will talk about the community batteries and the differences between the community batteries as well as the community microgrids. And end of the presentation, in fact, if you've got time, I'm happy to answer any questions as well. So I'm coming from RMIT. So we have around 12 academics working in these main areas, starting from power systems, power electronics, and next generation electricity grids, which are the microgrids, battery energy storage solutions, as well as the virtual power plants. And also we have expertise in policy, regulatory, as well as the economic aspects. So we have been doing this research for a while. So our at this stage, the main purpose of engaging with the community is taking our research to the community and making a community-wide impact rather than limiting ourselves to the publications. So that's why, as a result of that, we have approached your community almost a year ago, and we are continuing this conversation to identify what sort of community energy solutions you need to fully fill your energy demand as well as energy requirements. So these are some of the projects we have done before. And in fact, I have just listed 3 projects we have done in Victoria itself. Uh, we have been heavily involved with 2 of the other microgrid feasibility studies. One is in Donald and one is in Tanegulla. Those 2 towns are also considering to have their own microgrids. So that means if the main grid supply is not available, they want to operate their townships as separate grids so that they can maintain the continuity of supply during any natural disasters or any other grid outages. So these things are not new. Actually, it is currently happening. And also there is a huge push for the community batteries as well. Community batteries are slightly different from microgrids. It offers different capabilities. So I will also discuss about the aspects as well in my presentation. So let's look at a community microgrid. In fact, community microgrid also form by aggregating the solar PV systems. It could be a rooftop solar PV system that you have in your household, and also battery storage systems. Plus, there could be some additional renewables in the microgrid. So that means there could be a big solar farm, or there could be a big solar array in a rooftop in one of the commercial building. Could be part of the microgrid. But the main significance of a microgrid is it has a robust control system. So that means some sort of electronic sensors as devices which can coordinate these resources together, and then if there is a grid outage, they can supply the electricity to the consumers. So they don't have to worry about the main grid supply. This control itself ensure the continuity of supply. So these sort of systems are mostly useful for communities which are experiencing a lot of outages during a year, as well as the communities which are more vulnerable for bushfire, floods type disasters. So the main advantage is, again, I want to emphasize, uh, the main advantage is that you can keep the continuity of electricity supply during the any grid outages. So that is the main advantage of a community microgrid. But designing of microgrid is not so easy task, because you have to identify several key aspects. One is the purpose of designing the microgrid. There should be a good valid reason to develop a microgrid, because it's very costly, and the size of the battery energy storage system required for this sort of microgrid could be millions of dollars. Unless it is subsidized by the state government or federal government, uh, uh, the cost of a microgrid cannot be easily justified. So that should be there, enough funding should be there, as well as there should be a really concrete reason to develop it. And also it is important to know about the availability of various renewable resources, mainly the solar resources, as well as in some cases, it could be wind resources, so that they should be able to provide enough energy to charge the battery energy storage system in the microgrid. And also control systems should be defined, and also the DNS space should come on board. And some cases, the investors should come on board. And after that, there should be sufficient business case should be there to actually implement a microgrid. Because after doing all these things, if you do not have a proper business model or the investors on board, it's very difficult to implement these sort of microgrids. And some cases, the policies and regulations also act as the bottlenecks to develop microgrids, but that space also been evolving at these last few years, so that more and more policy and regulatory changes are happening to support the microgrids. So therefore, the main key message is to develop a microgrid, there should be a clear-cut understanding of the energy needs, and there should be a very good reason and justification to develop a microgrid for a particular community. So at this stage, there are some good examples. One is the Kin Island microgrid, as well as the Rottnest Island microgrid. And also there are emerging examples as well in Victoria, like Yakatanda, as well as from the future, Donald and Tanagula could be some other microgrids. But the fact is, these old microgrids, which are developed for the Kin Island and Rottnest Island, they were heavily relied on the non-renewables like diesel generators as well. So the modern trend is get rid of these fossil fuel based sources and have a completely renewable microgrid. I believe many communities, including your community, have renewable energy targets. So therefore, it's better to avoid those fossil fuel technologies for the future microgrids. So we have done some microgrid studies for the Alice Springs as well. So that is another project, ongoing project that we have been involved in with. That is called Alice Springs Future Grid Project. And this is the work we have, some of the things we have done for the Donald and Tanagula microgrids. So there are two different towns, and those two towns have different specifications. So we have done a completely technical study to analyze the feasibility of islanding those two towns from the main grid and operate as a microgrid. So we have seen a clear-cut potential there as well, but still the clear-cut business case should be developed, and also the funding should be secured to implement these microgrids. So these project, in fact, we done with the C4Net, one of the uh, organizations which run these sort of community projects. So, and also several other partners were involved with that project too. So having said that, I mentioned to you earlier that we have been closely communicating with the 2030 year community. So yeah, group. So we have studied the potential of having the microgrids within the YA community. And one thing we identified was there is no strong case to develop a microgrid for the entire community, considering around 1,200 households. But if there are uh, areas which experiencing large grid outages or low reliability issues, then there could be a case. So considering this fact, predominantly looking from the network and the technical perspective, we have identified 7 potential sites, and then we have shortlisted 3. So these were purely done from the technical perspective. We haven't proceeded further, but these are the future things that you can consider if you are planning to do so. But this has to be done with the proper technical study, because we just did the very preliminary analysis uh, of these sites, but it has to be thoroughly investigated. So that those things have not been done. So we have identified Killingworth, Chevrolet Limestone, that is one of the swear lines, as well as Yare River Natural Conservation Reserve. But these 3 sites should be properly analyzed before making any decision if in future, if you're planning to have a microgrid. And let's come to one of the hot topics, community batteries, because technically having a community battery is more easy than developing a microgrid, simply because when it comes to the microgrid, the size of the battery energy storage system itself is several times larger than having a single community battery. And also, there is no requirement to island the community from the main grid. So for the community battery to exist, the grid should exist. So they both should coexist to operate a community battery. So the community battery can be placed in a area where that in fact, a network area where that experiencing high network congestion, so that the DNSP itself, distributor itself, identify the network bottlenecks because of the high solar generation, and say, look, there is a huge bottleneck issue, network bottleneck issue, so we need to place a battery. So that is a good case for having a community battery. And in addition to that, it will help to export more solar capacity to the grid, because that can be locally stored. The energy generated by the rooftop solar PVs can be locally stored within the community battery. And then it can be released to the network when it giving high energy prices, so that effectively, if we operate a community battery in a profitable way, you can reduce the electricity bill. But again, given that it has to be done with the proper way, because community battery has to be operated by another third party, or it could be in some cases community itself. So then there should be a properly defined business model. And if the business model is developed in a clever way that it reduces the energy cost, then it can give a lot of benefits to the community. It's all depend on who's going to operate and how they're going to operate the community battery. And in addition to that, community battery can also provide network support, like the frequency control ancillary services, we usually call that technical term. And also that can generate additional income stream for the community battery operator as well as the community. So those 3 opportunities are available when you have a community battery. But the main difference is, again, I want to highlight, it cannot be islanded. Having a community battery mean that when you lose the grid supply, uh, you also lose the community battery operation as well, because community battery to operate, you need to have the grid. But additional, the other thing is, uh, having a community battery could be the starting point of developing a microgrid as well, because to operate a microgrid, you still need a battery storage system. And this community battery in future can be upgraded to operate as a microgrid with additional investment, or having additional sensors or the other hardware equipment. So it could be the starting point if a community plan to build up a microgrid, uh, because it will provide an additional asset for the community to go for to reach to that microgrid target. So that benefit also there. And also other fact is, with regard to community batteries, there are a lot of funding is coming in. Arena funding is also there. but that has to be applied with the DNSP itself. For example, for this community, a community, it has to be worked with the OSNet to get the funding from the arena. Plus, Victoria State Government itself will also going to announce another funding scheme to fund these batteries, because these are worth millions. So unless they subsidize, it's not an easily justifiable investment for the community. So the opportunities are there for both community batteries as well as the microgrid. And therefore, I think there will be a good future if you are seriously thinking about having these technologies. But there should be a clear-cut vision as well as a plan to move forward. So, so this is the final touchdown in my presentation. This is about the differences between the community battery as well as the community microgrid. Community microgrid, it can operate both off-grid as well as the on-grid operation. That means it will ensure the continuity of supply despite the grid is available or not. But the community battery, you always need to have a grid supply to operate. Of course, community batteries, community microgrids can improve the electricity supply system reliability quite a lot. But community batteries, it improve up to a certain extent, because it can reduce the network bottleneck, but not to the extent where that microgrid can provide the issues. And also, community batteries can be strategically placed in a locations where that it needs network augmentation, so that from the DNSP perspective, it is a more viable investment than doing a network upgrade. So that is another benefit bring to the DNSPs as well, so they can defer the network investments. And finally, if a community plan to move forward with this community battery, then it would be considered as the starting point to go for a microgrid, because to get to the microgrid, only what you need is additional battery storage system and additional hardware components. So that could be the starting point to go to that level. But still, there should be a clear cut plan to move forward with the community battery or community microgrid solution. So these are the general information that I want to present to you today. I'm happy to take up more questions from you, because I didn't include any technical details, but we have created a website on the community microgrids, and we are going to include more information on the community batteries as well in the coming months. So if you go to this web address, communitymicrogrid.net, you can find a lot of information related to these community microgrids in this particular website. So feel free to browse through this website and find more information. And also there is a button which you can directly ask questions from our experts. So we are happy to answer any queries as well through this website. And thank you very much. And that's it from my